Alright guys, I had a few people ask me about the rent to buys, a few questions. First one being about age. Is there a issue around age? Bear in mind it's the banks that have issues around ages, because it's to do with the making sure they get the mortgage payments paid. But if they've got, if there's enough equity in the property anyway, I'm sure there's some flexibility in that, but I'm not a mortgage broker, so I can't really give you too much information. But on a rent to buy, you're looking to make the purchase between you and the buyer anyway, not with the banks, not with a brokerage, not with the insurance company. It's person to person. As such, the flexibility in that is between you and them. You know, if they say, well, you're a bit old to be doing it, I'd probably say that's unlikely. But if somebody said to you, okay, you know, my view on it is a pensioner's got regular income. So they've got regular stable income, and I can't really lose on a property if I owned it, because even if they passed or whatever, guess what? The property would still either need to be paid or it comes back to me anyway. So I'd be on a win-win in that sense, because that's part of the obligation of rent to buy, is you're buying the property. It's not rent to try, where, oh, I've decided I don't want it now and can I have all my money back, thank you very much. No, that's not how this works. You're committed to making the purchase. In the same way, when you get to the bank and buy a property with a mortgage, they don't expect you to suddenly go, well, you know what, I've paid a lot on it, but I've decided I don't really want it anymore. Could I have my money back? Well, they want the mortgage repaid, and on top of that, they're still looking to keep the interest that's already been paid. So you've got to take that on board. There is risk on that side, but that's where you've got to weigh up. If you're getting up to retirement age, you could actually do it in two senses. As somebody said themselves, they would be looking at using it as a rental, where they rent out in the summer and come over in the winter. Then there's a potential there where if they find the right property, it's going to be paying for itself the majority of the time anyway. You're still going to have to top it up on a rent to buy. There's no getting away from that unless you actually got it at a similar rate as a mortgage. The other questions were, how's the rent to buy market in this area? Rent to buy is something that's growing. A lot of this is coming out of the fact that there's a lot of people with not enough money for deposits, because you've got to remember, a lot of people bought properties with zero down. They bought some of these were 130%. You know, they were basically giving the houses away and then putting people on the tick. Now the banks want 30% up front. So the market's sort of reversed, but at the same time, a lot of people ain't got the 30% to put down, and then the taxes on top. So this is where rent to buy sort of come in, because rent to buy is you don't pay the taxes till the end because you haven't made a purchase, you're renting. On top of that, there isn't a 30% down. You're paying it month to month. So don't get me wrong, you may have 30 grand to pay within a fixed period, in the sense of, say you might get somebody who says, you know what, to see that you're committed the same way we are, we'd want €1,000 a month for the first year, and then we'll drop that down to a lower rate on an ongoing basis. This is the thing that people need to be aware of. This is not between you and the bank. This is not between you and the real estate agent. This is not between you and a lawyer. This is between you and a seller. So there's a lot of flexibility in there, and there's a lot of difficulties sometimes around the trust factor, because obviously somebody's entrusting your property, their property to you, so they want to sell it to you, but they're seeing there's risks there, when in fact most of the rules are in their favor. You know, for example, if you walked out on it after 6 months, they keep all that money for the 6 months and get their property back. So they've lost nothing, in the sense they've had 6 months money paid off. But do you have to put 10% down? Do you have to put 3% down? Do you have to put... It's between you and them. You know, for my view on this is, I'm more onto ongoing incomes. So for example, if I buy a property at 100,000, I would look to put 20 or 30,000 down at the start, because it would reduce my monthly payments on it. But then I would look to rent it out, and then I would look to pay on top of that, so that I can pay it off as quick as possible. Because when you don't need the money, that's ideally when you want to be spending it on the property, because you're paying it off as quick as possible. Because when you get to a certain point, say 80% is paid off, you might decide that you want to take a slower pace, and because the amount you paid is already a large amount, you may be able to just say, you know what, I can't really afford $1,000 a month. I'll have a look at a mortgage for the last bit, or even a car loan, because what's left on it's less than a new car these days. So you may turn around and say, you know what, I'll pay it off at this, or you could go back and say, look, I've been making all these payments. Can we reduce it down a bit? Ongoing, pay the last bit off at a slower rate. There's flexibility in it. Where in the banks, the only time you normally get flexibility is when you're about to hand them the keys and walk away, saying, well, I'll just go bankrupt. And then suddenly they don't want you to go bankrupt. They're worried about people doing that because it's very difficult for them to recover anything at that point. So bear in mind, it's between you and the owner. It's not between you, the bank, you and the lawyer, you and somebody else. It's between the two people. This is why when you look at criteria, some people will go, oh, it's 3 to 10%. Other people will say it's no cash down. Other people will say it's $500 a month, 5,000 up front, 500 a month, then another 5,000 the following year, then continue for it. There's different patterns to it, and the thing here you need to remember, the ball's in your court. If somebody's gone to rent to buy, is pretty much, as a seller, they have been struggling to sell their property. The reality is, properties in Spain, they keep building these bloody new ones. Now, the point with me in La Mata is La Mata has a strong rental market because of where it's positioned. It's got a strong tourism market. It's a nice place to live. So it's expansive in the fact that you can find tenants all year round. Now, with that in mind, it makes sense. For me, it's a case of making money all year round, because once it gets to a certain point, I paid a chunk of it off or whatever, it then gets to the point where people living in it are paying all of it, and that's where I want to be with that. I want to get to 4 apartments here in Spain, or 4 in La Mata. Now, what's the rent to buy market like in La Mata was a question that was brought up as well. You've got to understand, a lot of these people don't even think about it. They don't even know what rent to buy is. Doesn't mean it can't be marketed. It doesn't mean that leaflet drops couldn't actually find 10 people wanting to sell their property because it's been sat at the real estate agent for 6 years and they've no responses. The reality is, it's just got to be pitched. It's got to be leaflet dropped. It's got to be, website set up, and then people will they'll come to you and say, okay, well, what is rent to buy? How can I sell my property that way? Because some of it may be a problem around the banks with the mortgages, but at the same time, if that's an agreement between you and an individual, the banks aren't going to even be aware of it half the time. I'm not going down the route of legal notices and stuff. I'm not even getting into who should they tell the bank or whatever. That's up to them and the bank. It's nothing to do with me. I'm not getting involved in that side. I'm just saying it is possible for somebody to sell a property on a rent to buy that they may find near impossible to sell in any other way. The other side of that being, like I said, the rental potential here in La Mata is very good anyway. So even if you bought it now and ain't moving to Spain for 5 years, you'll find you'll be able to pay a lot of the mortgage off before you moved here. There's a few people I know actually in profit on an annual basis just getting their property mortgaged. They mortgage it and then they rent it out in the summer months, and they make enough in the summer months to pay the mortgage for the whole year plus all the fees and stuff. So it is viable. The rent to buy, obviously it's more condensed, but I was talking with Mal yesterday. Mal says there's people that will do it over 10 years, and there's some flexibility and stuff in it as well, because it depends where the property is. It depends how desperate they are to sell. Because, for example, like I've mentioned before, if someone's got ill health, for them, they would rather have the money monthly, because, let's face it, they may want to go back to the UK for the healthcare, whatever reason, be with their family or whatever, and they need that money to pay for their place in the UK or whatever. The point being is there's stuff that can actually make this work for all parties. And there's reasons people actually say, yeah, do that. Because the other alternative is, like I've seen, there's a property up in Pinot Mar where they dropped it down by 30%. There's a 1-bedroom flat there for just over 40,000. Pinot Mar is a bit of an odd location because of the state it's in at the moment. It could easily be turned around, I'll be honest with you. But you would need, say, 10 to 20 new people moving in there to sort of try and regenerate the place. But that's what the other option is, you sell it cheap. And even then, you've got a lot of people hanging around trying to get the cheapest deal possible. So even then, there's no guarantee it's going to sell. What other questions have people had? So how much money do you need up front? In many cases, nothing. Because a lot of them are literally rent to buy, where they don't actually want an upfront or aren't asking for it. Or you can work something with them. That's the whole point. You're not paying the $300-400 a month. You're paying $800 or $1,000 or whatever over a period of time. But you do see some of them, it's a little bit crazy, where they turn around and want $700 a month and $50,000 at year 2, and $700 a month for the last year because they want it all paid off within 3 years. Those sort of things may work for some people, but in the same mindset, you may find you're better off going with a mortgage for less hassle, or you don't have to worry about finding the 50k. Others will actually say, right, pay it over 10 years, and this is what the rent is for that 10-year period to pay the whole property off. And the other thing you remember, it's the price you pay moving in, not the price it is at the end. So the point being is, if the property's gone up 20%, don't think that they can ask you for the other 20%. Their price is agreed at day one. And I think I pretty much covered everybody's questions on that. But there's no limitations on age. The rent to buy market, you often got to pitch it yourself. The limitations around it are between you and the owner. You just come to an agreement. You work out what works for both parties. Some of it, they may just want you to do it, pay it for the first 18 months, 2 years, and then go and get a mortgage, because it's to do with the equity in the building. Now you can actually go and get a mortgage because you've already invested that amount of money into the building already. That's where you'll get a rent with a rent to buy option, where you can actually just rent the property, and if you're happy with it, you can then take it over. But they'll actually take the rent that you've paid over that period of time and put it towards your deposit, which isn't really a deposit, it's just equity in the property. You just go to the bank and said, I've already got 30% of this building I've already paid for. But I think that's pretty much all of the questions that I covered on that so far. Legalities around it, you'll need it notarized, you'll need it done officially the same way as everything else. One of the things I do recommend is having a look at some clauses in there for it. Like I said, if you get ill health or something else that stops you being able to make the payments, find something that can work for both parties. The whole idea is you don't want to move in there for 2 years paying a premium rent, suddenly you get ill and need like 6 months to recover, and then losing what you put into the property. You've been paying a premium anyway. If you've got something in there that says, look, if I get ill and whatever, maybe I've got a grace period at a normal rent for 3 or 4 months, and then I increase it again as soon as I'm fit for work, etc. That's the advantage of this, is people wanting rid of their buildings. It's people that are looking to sell their property on. It's not people that can go at the bank and say, here's the keys, sell it, and not worry about it. It's people that are literally wanting rid of their properties, whether it's age, whether it's the fact that, for example, a lot of these properties are older generations, where maybe the kids are taking them on, but the kids have been here for the last 20, 30 years on holiday with their parents. And suddenly they're going, what, I think 30 years is enough. I think I'll go elsewhere. So when they inherit it, they put it up for sale. There's lots of reasons. But it is a growing market. It is a way I see that is forward thinking. You're not really going to get real estate agents and others push it too hard, because let's face it, if you can get 5 grand on somebody selling a property, a rent to buy option is not going to be giving you that 5 grand. You're going to get that introduction, maybe somewhere around the notarization of the documents and stuff. It's going to be a lot less money. So they're not going to plug it as hard as they will selling a property, or selling a new property that's got large commissions on it. This is something that is going to be a case of fixed fee, where, you know, the way I'm looking at doing it with Torreca Services, we open a section up which is rent to buy, where people put their properties on there. Even with the rental sales, it's €250 all in. So you pay us $250, we do the photos, do videos, put it in Gumtree and all the other websites, and then quite simply, that's our job done. We're not going to show people around your property, that's for you to do. But what you are getting is the marketing done. And in the same way, there's a lot of people interested in rent to buy, so a seller should pick somebody up quite easily. And there is the other option, like I said, taking mortgages over. But even that could be a rent to buy as well, because you're basically taking over their payments. And it could be something you can work in without. That's what I like about it. It's flexible. It's putting a lot more options on the table than what many have going through the banks, you know, where it's very, very structured with a specific criteria, where rent to buy gives you more buying power, but also gives you more flexibility in it. And I know some of you guys invest money and stuff, so if you didn't have to put this 30% down up front, you could invest that money instead, and actually off your interest could actually pay the mortgage. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and if you like the video, please like, please subscribe, and what else? Please share.